All right. So, Mr. Godfred, can you give me feedback if you are seeing my screen? You know, I'll be engaging you quite often.
Yes, please.
All right, great. So, if you already have your Mendeley reference manager already set up, you should have a view like this. Okay, you should have a view like this if you already configured everything. Perhaps if you had not already, I quickly save the links to make it very short. When you visit mendeley.com, that is their main site where you can register an account, to download the Mendeley Reference Manager to be able to start your work. Now, Mendeley, they have the online version and then the Reference Manager version. But today's session will be solely for what you install on your desktop. The reason why I want to focus on that is I know sometimes you may not always have access to internet, and you would have to sometimes work remotely without internet from various places on your laptop or whatever it is. So the session will basically be focused on that aspect. And I know not too many people also work from different workstations or different computers, and the focus will just be on trying to use the desktop app or the reference manager to do our work. So if you go to I am already logged in, that is why it's directly to this website. So if I should log out of, so once I sign and I visit their main page, their home page, it gives opportunity for people who are visiting the web page to create an account. Okay, great. So if you still don't have the reference manager, you can quickly visit mendeley.com and then you can create an account. You can just go and create an account. And after account, you can now download the reference manager. After you download the reference manager, the next thing you would want to do is to download the web importer. The web importer is more like a plug-in for the browser you use. I am using Chrome. I use Chrome most often. So the web importer would give you access to a plugin that would be inbuilt into your browser. And once you, so because I'm using Chrome, it says get web importer for Chrome. If you're using Firefox, it should say get web importer for Firefox, or if you're using Safari, it should give you something similar. If you successfully add this plugin to your browser, you should see a small extension icon over here. Okay, so if you have not added the web importer plugin yet, visit the mendeley.com reference manager web importer, and then click here to get a web importer. And then after a successful extension add-in, you should see. If you are not seeing it here, but successfully installed, just click on the extensions here, and then you can pin it. So it's visible over here all the time. If you want to pin it, you just have to click this pin. And once it means it's already pinned. And then you'd always now, after you do this, the next thing you'd want to do is also install the site plugin, the Mendeley site plugin. Now, the citation plugin is the plugin for your word processor. Okay, so this is the plugin for your word processor. I use Microsoft Word. And so after successfully installing this word plugin, it will install the plugins in my word processor. So if you visit this site and click Get Mendeley Site, it would add a plugin to your Word document. After successfully adding the plugin to your Word document, if you come up here to References, you should see your Mendeley plugin showing up here. Sometimes, I think for some word processors, it shows under plugins, but I'm using my... So if it's not showing here, then perhaps it means you didn't install it correctly. There's an error in the installation process. So you would want to confirm before we start. Okay, you would want to confirm all these things before the session. So once you are already set up and logged in, you should be able to now have this desktop version. Have this desktop version, which you can see here. Or you can also work.
No, at least one is 8:44 or 8:30.
I want to use my laptop.
Okay, thank you so much. So if you sign in over here, you should be able to.
Unmute.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sure. So I will quickly log into my account. And so if you use the online version, you can basically log into your account and it should work well. But like I said earlier on, our focus would be using the desktop version or the reference manager. Initially, they used to refer to it as Mendeley Desktop, but they discontinued the update for the Mendeley Desktop. And now the new one they released is what they call the Mendeley Reference Manager. They don't normally refer to it as desktop again because there is no. But once you download the Mendeley Reference Manager, you can have access to it and back faces and whatever it is. All right, so after successful installation, you should have an interface like this. You may not necessarily be seeing this because these are my works I've added here and some other works I've added here. So necessarily seeing this, but the interface should generally be the same. Okay, the interface should generally be the same. The first thing we want to look at is basically how to populate your Mendeley. If I say populate, it means how to add literature or how to add information to the Mendeley Reference Manager. Perhaps you are writing a thesis, you are writing a research paper, or you are doing any kind of research work, and you basically be working with literature. You'll be working with articles, reports, publications, and so on. And you'd want to get this process automated. Sorry for that. You'd want to get this process automated. Okay, so you want to add your work. Now, there are various ways that you can populate your. There are various ways you can populate your Mendeley reference manager, and I'll take us to at least maybe 3 or 4 ways that we can use. So after you get it installed, if you want to now add works, you just have to come on the add new. So you realize that we have about 4 options or 5. So here it says import from computer, import folder from computer, import from library, watch folder, and then add reference manually. Now, let me start with this one. Now, if you want to add the reference manually, it basically means you would want to input the information on the article yourself. So if I want to, perhaps I have the general title, I have all this information and I want to input them myself, I could basically fill in this information myself. And then it will get added to my reference. That is one way. That is one. Another way you could add manually is to enter the identifier. Most of us are researchers, or perhaps all of us. So you know, every paper comes with at least a DOI or some kind of ID. When you type the ID here and click search, Mendeley would be able to look online and look for the paper and gather the metadata of the paper. If I say metadata, refers to all these things: the year the paper was published, the title, the journal. Those are what I'm referring to as the metadata. So if you enter any DOI here, Mendeley should be able to get that for you. So let's give a try. I gathered some papers over here. So let's perhaps open a paper. And then try to use the DOI of that paper to see if Mendeley will be able to. Now let's get so let's open this Do Anti-Poverty Programs with test paper and try to use the DOI as a search tool. Okay, so actually it's a working paper. Let's try to get another one. Any paper, so it could be a PubMed ID. I know sometimes those in the sciences field also have different kind of IDs. So any of them should work. So this is a paper with the DOI let's try to copy it and see how it works. So you open your Mendeley app. I think I missed out a one here. And then once you enter it, you click on the search, and then it should be able to look for the paper. So you realize that automatically it ends up finding the paper. So it says here's a journal article. This is the title of the paper. These are the authors of the paper, Descartes and Daniel. And then it says it was published in British Journal of Political Science. This is the year, this is the volume. So, and then it also adds the abstract. So once you confirm all this entry, you can just click on add entry, and then it will be automatically add your reference. So realize that here it says that it shows the paper's information, Descartes and Mendeley's accountability, whatever it is. So realize that that is one of the ways you can add a paper if you have the DOI or the PubMed ID or ID you have. You could always use the add reference manually. So these are some of the identifiers that you could use to search if you don't want to add the papers manually. So I think most often you do not have to enter this information yourself. You may not necessarily enter this information yourself, because you could easily get an ID online and then use that to add your references. Okay, so now another way you could populate your Mendeley is to perhaps import files from a computer. So I click on add files from computer. It should open a dialog box and it will ask you what file would you want to add. So I can just go to my desktop and then add any file from my desktop. I have some papers here. So you could just click on any of the paper you want. So once I click here and choose open, Mendeley will automatically try to get as much information as it can from that paper. So realize it says uploading. And then once it's uploaded, you realize that it puts up the information over here. So it says Young World Bank aid and local multidimensional poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. You realize that there is a change here. It says that there is a file. When you see a file icon here, it means you not only have the metadata, but you still have the file itself. So if I see the file here, I could actually click on it and it will open the PDF in an inbuilt Mendeley PDF view. And in this PDF viewer, you could basically do all the things, or a lot of the things you do in your normal traditional PDF viewer. You could annotate, you could add a note, you could write, you could highlight, you could do basically the basic things you need a PDF viewer for. So after some few seconds, it should open. And then you should be able to read and then do anything you want on that. I'll come back to this later. So that's the second way you get to add documents or papers or literature in your Mendeley Reference Manager. I would want to hear maybe quickly from those who are following. Are we all together?
Yeah.
I hope we have not left.
Please.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes.
Great.
Yeah, we are together. We are together.
That's
We are
wanted to
together,
know
but I
them.
think you are going fast for some of us.
okay. I'll try to obtain a little slower pace. But please feel free. If you are leaving behind, feel free to send a message in the chat box. Once a while, in the chat box.
The file is still loading. Can you wait for it to load and you see the display?
Or go for perhaps if you see a question in the chat box, which perhaps I missed, you could also draft. So now you have basically looked at two ways. Later, I will keep popping up. Don't worry about this, and I'll explain. I don't want to pause the session and then I'll later explain why this is happening. Okay, so now we have looked at two ways. Let's now try to look at another way we could use to populate. So we did the import files from our computer. Now, one cool thing about Mendeley is it allows you to even import folders. So perhaps you have a folder. Let me quickly now go to my desktop and let me quickly create a new folder. Okay. And then let's give the name workshop. Okay, and then let me move some few papers from this papers folder. And then let's move it to the workshop. Okay, we just want to see some. So let's move perhaps these 4 papers and let's put them into this workshop folder. All right, so I put them here, over here in this workshop folder. And so this is sorted out. Great. Now we come back to our reference manager and I could choose import folders from computer. Once I choose that, Mendeley allows me to add the whole content of a folder and everything will be automatically populated. So I go to desktop and then the folder I created was workshop. So I created workshop. I think it contains about 4 files. Click on upload. You realize that it tells me here I'm uploading 4 files and it will go through each one of them one after the other. Okay, to go through each of them one after the other. And then it will automatically add. So you realize that automatically these 4 new items are highlighted. It's telling that these are the new 4 files I added. And it's telling that you have the PDF file that you can also view and read. Okay, now this was the initial PDF file I opened earlier on. And that's what's showing here. Sometimes it takes a bit long to load, so I'll still give it some minutes, depending on the specs of the machine you're working on. So now let's come back to the base. Okay, so I'll quickly close this. So that's the third way you could get files added in your Mendeley reference manager. All right. Now, another way is to create, I'll come back to this import library later. Another way is to create what we call a watch folder. Watch folder basically means you would create a folder on your desktop. And then you'll ask Mendeley to monitor that folder. So Mendeley would always be monitoring that folder. And any folder, anything you put in that folder, Mendeley will automatically bring it up here. Okay, that's what the watch folder does. So let's quickly create a watch folder. You realize I had created a watch folder earlier on and I deleted it. So Mendeley is telling me we can't locate the watch folder you have created. Okay, so you could easily create a folder. We already created this workshop. We could set the workshop as a watch folder. So now it's the same change because I had an initial watch folder and I deleted it. So I could just easily change folder. Yours may appear as create a folder. So I could create the folder. Now I want to use the workshop as my watch folder. So I click on the workshop and select it as my watch folder. You realize I've now set it as my watch folder. And then it is trying to add these 4 files that were already added. Okay, so it's telling me Mendeley is now watching a new folder. And it's now adding all the 4 files that initially were added. So now let's see if it actually works. I'll go back to my desktop and I'll try to add some new. Okay, let's add some new papers. So let's perhaps move next items. Let's copy now put them in a folder that is being monitored Mendeley. Okay, so once we put them there, Mendeley will automatically update these. Okay, so now I added about 3 new files. So if I go back to Mendeley, Mendeley is telling me it's watching a folder. I realize automatically it is updated over here, uploading 6 files. And then these are the new files that Mendeley has added. So I think you just have to go with what suits you. Okay, you just have to go with what suits you, whether you want to use a watch folder. The advantage of using a watch folder is you just can be adding documentation when it's needed, and Mendeley will automatically be monitoring and then doing the needed update. So people will use Mendeley in different ways based on how they go about their research. Now, the last one I quickly want to take us through is the import library. Okay, the import library. I think someone's unmuted. We have text, we have endnotes, we have RIS. Now, the metadata you get from papers you cite, you are saved as either of these formats. Okay, they are saved as these formats. If you want to see how it works, let's quickly go to our browser. And then let's go, maybe let's go. I think someone's mic is still unmuted. Could the admin help us? All right. So let's quickly visit Google Scholar to see how the metadata works and then how the library also works. So the referencing information or the citation information are stored either as reference information system, which is RIS, research information, which is RIS, or BibTeX or EndNote. So perhaps let me Chinese aid. You know, Chinese aid is my field. So if I type Chinese aid, all these keywords which are showing the various up here. So now perhaps there's a paper you will want to cite. If you click here, okay, if you click cite, it will give you the opportunity to download it in various ways. Okay. Now, before I do this, let me first close my Zotero account. Picked by Mendeley. So you see here, it says that how would you want to download the citation information? Is it at Bib? Is it at EndNote? Is it at RefMan? Is it as RefWorks? So you can save it as any of these. If I happen to try with BibTeX and I click on BibTeX, try to pop up this note, and then you can now copy and paste it in a word processor and then save it. And then you can import it into Mendeley. I would go, let me go, if I go with RefWorks, it will now pop up another format that I can save and work with. Okay. I think one of the most common one, when you go with the RefMan, it will be able to give you a downloadable file. And then when you download the file, you can use that file to import the information in your Mendeley account. So let's quickly give it a try. So let's close this. So after, when you click, you should be able to download, and then you can import. So perhaps if there are some information you want to gather from Google Scholar, that's one easy way you can go about it. I downloaded one earlier on, so I would quickly use that to give a try. So I could choose import from library, and then I could choose RIS, and then I could look for where the RIS file is on my computer. So I downloaded one to my download folder. So if I come to downloads, so okay, so it's not here. I thought I had an RS file here. So let's try and download one again from the Google Scholar. I hope it's not as a result of my network. So let's try and download another one. Perhaps let's go with this. So let's try. So far, you could try. I'm wondering why my network perhaps is being a bit slow, but if you should click on any of this, it should be able to download an RIS file for you. And then you should be able to import it into Zotero. Hold on, let me quickly check. Perhaps I have the RIS file. So give me a minute. I'll quickly share my screen again. All right, so I quickly got one app. Okay, so now I try to get one RS file. I guess perhaps it's my network or something, but if you should try, it should work. Once you click on sites and then you click on refman or refrex, it should allow you to download any RIS file, and then you should be able to import it in Mendeley. So I'll come in and I will just choose add new and then choose import from library. Once you choose RIS, it should open a dialog box for you to load your research information system file. So I come to desktop and then once I find my RIS file, it should be able to, so let's an RIS file. If I click on open, it shows here RIS uploading file. So Mendeley will try to upload the file, and then this is actually the file. Okay, so it's saying that this is the paper. What can we learn on Chinese aid allocation motivations from available data? You realize that here we are not seeing any file icon because it's not coming along with the PDF. You only see this popping up here when the PDF is associated with the work itself, the information is submitted. Okay, so I think those who have access to Google Scholar could give a try by the approach here. I think perhaps my network is a bit too slow to the download. Try again maybe in the course of the training. It should be able to work. All right. All right, still not working on mine, but I guess it should work on yours. Okay, so those are at least about 5 ways you could add information or literature or papers in your Mendeley Reference Manager. Now, perhaps you want to search for some literature. You don't necessarily actually have a particular literature, but you will want to search. When you are using the online version, it allows you to just go to their search page. Their search page is something like Google Scholar, where you can just type keywords, any keywords, and then it will help you to populate your Mendeley account or the reference list. Now, if you are using a desktop manager and you want to still use that search function, you just have to come to their tools. Okay, you just have to come to their tools. No need to go to their online and go to maybe mendeley.search. You know, ideally what you visit is you go to Mendeley and then slash search. And normally here is where you would search for files or literature you want to add to your account. And then you search here. Okay. When Reference Manager, the desktop app, you can do the same thing. You just have to come to Tools and then choose Search for Articles Online. Once you click on Search for Articles Online, it will open the same website for you. And then you can use any keyword. Okay, you can use any keyword, whether the author name, titles. So for example, if I should use my name, it will try to find papers that have this name in there, and then you should be able to gather the needed information. So realize that these are some papers that has my name or that have my name. And then once you get the needed paper, you could basically click on, I already have this, that's why it's saying viewing the library. So for example, I don't have this in my library. So when I click add to library, so observe the title, how constraining electricity to Ghanaian firms performance. Once I click add to library, it's now saying viewing library, and it's telling me that once you see it, it means the information has already been added to your library. And then it should show here soon, depending on the strength of your signal. So quickly it shows here, it's saying that this is the paper, how constraining are electricity fluctuations to Ghanaian. All right. And then it tells you the journal, it tells you the authors. Okay. So you can use this to also populate and get the needed literature that you need for your reference list. I hope we have not left anyone behind. Are we all together? Can I get some feedback in the chat box?
So
Yes, please, we are all together.
please,
Okay, great.
So
Great.
there are some
Mr.
questions coming in. Maybe we would save them and ask them later.
Okay. Okay. So
Okay.
I know Godfred is taking note of all the questions. So if I miss it, Godfred will draw my attention. And I've seen some of you perhaps have sent me a direct message. I may miss them out. Okay. So you can get my email. I'll drop my email before we end so that if people have personal questions, they could contact me. All right. So now let's proceed. Now you see a list here. Okay. All the documents or all the information you add or all the literature you add will be captured under all references. So everything I have in my Mendeley desktop manager or reference manager is showing under references. The ones I recently added, recently means about 30 days. So the ones I recently added will be captured under recently added. So any document you put here within 30 days will be captured here. The ones you recently read would also be captured here. So you realize that here, the recent paper I read was this paper. That's why it's captured here. And your favorites would be captured here. So it says, I don't have any favorites yet. Now, perhaps there are some papers you read often or are key to your work. If you want to mark them as favorites, you just have to click on this star. So if I click on this star, okay, I am marking them as my favorites. I click on this favorites, the ones I've marked out should show here. All right. So that's how you basically get to do some sampling of the literature you have in your reference. This green dot you see here is telling you that you have not yet opened the file associated with this document. If a PDF is associated with this document and you open the PDF, this green would go off. Okay, so for some of the documents that I've opened, you realize this one I've opened it, so the green dot is off. So that's basically what this green dot signifies. Now my publications. Now this is another cool feature. I have already activated mine, so it will show you a list of some of my papers that are indexed in Scopus. If you have not activated yours and you click on my publications, it will show you an instruction that claim your Scopus profile or something of that sort. Yes, it will. So if you have a Scopus profile, you can claim it. Once you claim and you connect, automatically any paper of yours indexed in Scopus would be automatically added here. Okay, so it means you wouldn't have to bother trying to upload your own papers in your Mendeley account. It will automatically be tracking every paper that bears your name that is released in Scopus and automatically put them here under publications. And then unsorted, these are papers that you have not sorted or distinguished in any way. They'll be captured here. And then another amazing feature of Mendeley is the duplicate section. Here, it gives information on all the papers or literature that are appearing more than twice. And then it will help you to be able to clear them. So for example, it's telling me that this paper, I've captured it in there 3 times. So I could basically delete. So I could move this to trash. And then I could move this to trash. And then it will now keep only one version of that particular paper. Okay, so if you're having duplicates, you can basically just go to click on the duplicate section and then remove all the duplicates so that you just have only one copy of the literature that you have. And then once you move them to trash, they will all be captured under the trash can here. All right. So once they are captured here, you could basically select all of them by clicking here, and then you could choose delete permanently, and then choose on delete, and then it will delete everything out of your trash can. All right. So I believe we are still making progress. Collections. Collections are basically like folders. Okay, collections are like folders. So you can create different collections. Okay, so for example, we could say I could a workshop collection. And once I create this workshop collection, I could move papers into this workshop collection. There are various ways. Most of us perhaps are IT savvy. So you can just drag here and move here and it should work. So if I click now on my workshop, you see that I have one paper in my workshop. There are various ways. You could also right click, okay, and then you can make a new selection, new sub collection. New sub collection means this is the main folder and you want to add or create a subsection under this folder. So this workshop, we are looking at Mendeley and then Zotero. So maybe a good subsection would be, let's say this is for Mendeley. So we'll create a new, new sub. So I call this Mendeley. And then I could create another subsection. And then I could call it Zotero. Okay, so perhaps the topic you are working on could be broken down, or perhaps you are working literature review and you are looking at different variables in a literature review. You could create these sub collections and then add the needed information you want to add. All right, so, and then if you want to delete, if you want to rename, you could basically make use of all this information. When you put information here or literature here, you could also export them as a library, either as an RS file or as EndNote or BibTeX or as an XML. Perhaps a bit more advanced. So I want to first finish with the basics. And then if you look at that. Okay, so these are the collections. See them as folders. If I should click on this drop down, I will realize that folders are now submerged and then hit. And then if I click on the drop down, it falls back again. So just see this as and then subfolders. And then groups are normally to synchronize your work so that you could share your work with other group members. So perhaps you are not the only one working on the project. You are 2 or 3 authors working on the project, and you want to give them access to the literature you have or to the reference list you have. You could make use of a group. So I could create a group. Let's name it sharing.
I've joined. Share is very important because they will be doing project work here and there. They are completing this.
The person be muted. Thank you so much. So once you create the new group, you just click on this extended options here, and then you can choose manage group. Once you click on manage group, it gives you the opportunity to invite people who you want them to have access to the collection in that group. Okay, so I'm the group, this is my name. And then it allows you to add 25 people. You are one, so it means you have 24 slots left. And then I could invite members by entering their email address. So perhaps if you are 4 authors working on a paper, this is a cool feature you could make use of. Okay. Information you put there, they would have access to. All right, so I think these are the things that you would basically need Mendeley for. Almost 90% or 80% of the things you'll be doing are what I've taken you through. Now, quickly, before we go to how to use it in Word or for citation and those stuff, a few more things is about filters, okay? Perhaps you'll want to be able to use some filters to be able to select subsample of the works you have in Mendeley. You could make use of tags. Aside the keyword you could use to search using author name or titles, you could make use of tags. Okay. Tags are more like some identifiers you give to various people. So if I should click on these, if I should click on this paper, you realize I have the info tab here. Okay, when you click on this info tab, it gives you the metadata of this paper, the DOI and everything about this paper. I could add a tag. So it says here, no tags added. So I could add a tag and say maybe my paper. Okay, and then that tag would be saved. Okay, and then I could use this tag to search. Okay, so you realize that when I click on the filters, when you click here, I choose my paper, you realize that only this paper with this tag is popping up. So that's how you can use tag to create subsample selections of your work. So perhaps if you are, depending on the kind of work you are working on, you could use different kind of tags to create sample selection so that when you use the tag to search, you know you are looking at a very refined collection that you need for a particular task. All right. So I guess now we want to now go to how to handle citation or the citing in our works. So if you want to clear the tags, you just have to cancel this, and then you should be able to see your normal interface again. All right, so now let's open our Word document. I'll quickly create a new file. All right, so if you correctly installed your Mendeley, if you click on the reference tab, this should pop up here. Okay, and then if you should click on it, it should the Mendeley plugin that allows you to do the needed citing and everything. It's very easy to use. So I think at this stage, there is no need in trying to manually type out your reference list or citation or bibliography. It won't be wise to do so now in the abundance of such reference managers. So I see mine is taking a while to load. It should open soon. So now perhaps let's say you are working on a work. This is our research workshop on using Mendeley and Esoteric. Okay. So perhaps you've written this line, you want to add a citation here. How do I do that in Mendeley? So Mendeley would, once you open this plugin, okay, this extension, Mendeley will now list all the items in your reference list over here. It will list all the items in your reference list over here. So if you have a lot, perhaps it may take a minute to fully list them over here. And then here you have your citation settings. I'll come to that later. And then here it will populate all the list. I guess mine is, okay, great. So you should have a view like this based on the papers you have. So you could always search for the paper. So perhaps you've made a statement, you want to do an in-text indirect citation. Now, if I say an in-text indirect citation, I mean the ones we are making an indirect reference to, or the ones we put in bracket. Okay, so I could just, if this is the paper I want to just click here. And then once I click on it, it will say insert citation, and I can choose insert citation. And then Mendeley would quickly pop it up here. Now you have to make sure that this rectangular box is always maintained intact. Okay, now perhaps you want to cite more than one person, you can still click in anywhere in that box. And then if I should click on this added one, it will say save changes, and I just click on save changes, and it will automatically add the other author here. So now it says that we have this first author, this second author. Okay, so that's basically how you go about the citing. All right. If you want to do a direct citation where you are quoting, you are directly mentioning the author, and then basically explain that this author says this. So for example, Atatiante, maybe 2026. How do I go about it? I could still enter the Atatiante name. I could type the name and maybe search for the word Atatiante. It says it doesn't find any Atatiante. Okay, it finally finds it now. And I could just click on this, and then I'll insert the citation. And I would have to now manually rather put the opening bracket here. Okay, and then I can close this bracket, and then it should work well. Okay, so once you do this, it will still recognize that as a citation. You just have to make sure that you are not clearing this rectangular box in any way. Once you delete that rectangular box, it will not be able to recognize it as a cited work. Okay, so this is how you go about it. And then once you finish your work, perhaps you want to now have your bibliography, which is your reference list. How do you go about it? You just now insert the cursor where you want to put your reference list. You come to citation settings. Okay. And then you can, if there is need to change citations or whatever it is, you can do the needed changes And then you can click on insert bibliography. So when I insert bibliography, it will now, your bibliography will be inserted at your cursor location. I click on continue, and then everything will be inserted here. All right. So it's very simple to use, very automated session. And then any changes you make here, once you update it or refresh it, it should be able to reflect the changes here. So perhaps maybe you submitted your paper to Journal A. Journal A wants APA, and they rejected your paper to Journal B. Journal B wants IEE. Okay, so you can just click on change citation style, and then there's a list here you can choose from. If your choice is not showing here, you could search for style. You could search maybe MLA. You could search it to be able to find what you are looking for. So let's go for IEE. Once I choose IE and I choose update citation style, it will automatically use IEE style. So realize these are numbered with square brackets, and then they are indented at the same margin size. So everything is really automated. Okay, you don't have to do a lot of manual steps. So you basically can always change the citation style any way you want. And you could even add your own custom style. Right, you could even add your own custom style. And then everything should work pretty well for you. So these are the basic things you definitely need your Mendeley for. Very, very basic, very, very basic things you need your Mendeley for. And so I believe this is a good overview. I would give room for some questions or some of the questions we missed out before we go to Zotero. I think I've done Zotero quite a number of times, so I believe a lot of people may be familiar with Zotero. So I think it's okay to give more attention or much of the time to Mendeley, and then we'll use the remaining time for the Zotero. I wanted to use the PDF to signify some annotations, but my PDF, let me try to view another PDF again to see if we would have success this time around. Okay, the other one is here. Let's see if it's fully loaded now. So it's still taking a while to load. Now, if you come here, you see notebook. Now, notebook, basically, it's like, it's like the name implies, notebook. It allows you to write whatever it is that you want to write in your Mendeley. Okay, it allows you to write whatever it is you want to write in your Mendeley. It's something like a form of Evernote, something that allows you to make notes. Okay, so you can use this notebook. And then once you do that, you would always see it. Now, the difference between notebook and annotations is that when you use annotations, you are trying to write some information in a particular document. Okay, so if I click on this paper and I click on annotations, okay, no annotations yet. Use the highlight and comment tools to create annotations. So what will actually happen is once I do any changes, any documentation, any highlighting in my paper that I've opened, in the PDF viewer that I've opened, it will automatically show up under the annotations section. I'm thinking that perhaps my RAM is a bit overloaded, so everything is taking a long time to load. Other than that, you should be able to use this message, use this highlighter to be able to highlight text and everything in this PDF that you are viewing. The computer I'm using now is a bit slow in responding. That's why I'm not seeing the PDF here, but I believe it should work on yours. I would have tried if it had loaded. Let me try opening another file. Perhaps I may have some success. Okay, so let's open this file and then give it some time. You realize that it will give you room to be able to annotate, highlight, or add. Okay, this worked, great. All right, great. So you realize I'm able to read, I'm able to do whatever it is in this paper. So I could highlight or I could insert a sticky message. So if I click on this icon, okay, I could insert a message and say, this is our workshop. If I insert this, and then perhaps you want to highlight or whatever it is that you want to do, highlight text or rectangular area. If you want to highlight a rectangular area, it means you are making a selection and then you highlight over it, and then everything will be highlighted. And then if you want to highlight a text, basically, as the name implies, you are highlighting the text itself. Do all these things. If I come back to my library, and I click on the list over here, it should be able to capture that under annotations. So realize that this is the annotations, and it's telling me this is what you have actually written in this paper. So that's another cool effect that may help some of us who do a lot of writings. Maybe when you are doing literature review, you are reading a lot of papers, you would want to maybe add some keywords or add some notes to those papers that you got some key information from. And then once you do that, when you click on a paper, it will automatically pop up under the annotations section. All right, I think I will pause here. It's a minute after 8. Are there any questions that someone may want to ask? Or if we left you?
No. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Philip. So there are some questions that came in when you were presenting. Maybe we can take them first. Okay. And we can give some minutes as you would decide on, because I think you know how many minutes would suffice for the Zotero. So I have like 4 questions here. I would read them. And with your permission, I would see if we can take other questions, if that's okay.
We can proceed.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can proceed with the questions.
Okay, so I'm reading this question from Komita. Komita is asking, for junior researchers, they often complain they downloaded some papers, say from Google, and it didn't carry citation information, full citation information. How can they use Mendeley to cite this paper in their study? Please, is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay. Let me take another question. Maybe the first 3, and then you would tackle them one after the other. The second question is from Ahin Liam. Does Mendeley have a turn its in function to check plagiarism? And then from Kia Jiman, he's asking, please, I can't find Mendeley in Word. When I click references, what could be the problem? So please, let's take these first 3. And then please, if you have a question and then you want to speak, you can just go to the reactions icon, click it, and then you lift up your hand, and I'll call you in due time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. So I'll try to address the question to the best of my ability. I may not be able to give you the best of answers, but I'll try my best. So perhaps if you ask and you are using Google Scholar, but Google Scholar seems not to give you the best of metadata. Remember, I said metadata is the reference information in the paper you're citing. So I think if you are using Mendeley, your primary way for adding papers or trying to get metadata should be to use their search tool. So you come to tools and choose search for articles online. If you're using Mendeley, that is the primary way you would want to use. And then you maybe use Google Scholar as a second option. So I would want to rather come to tools and then search for articles online. After I click on search for articles online, it will take me to the page. And then this is basically more like Mendeley's version of Google Scholar. Okay, it has been basically developed to help Mendeley use be quite easy and automated. All right, so I'll just choose any keyword, like I said earlier on Chinese aid, I search, and then it will give me all the works, at least indexed in Scopus. Okay, and then I see the works here, and then I'll go to choose the one I want. If you see the paper you would want, and then you click here, it says here, add to library. Now, when you click add to library, if the paper is an open access paper, it will also download the PDF. So for example, you see here, it says Chinese aid and corruption in African local government. If I should click here, out to library, it will try and download the metadata plus the PDF because it's an open access paper. Is that okay? So once I click on this, it's now telling me view in library. It says view in library. If I should go to my Mendeley, you realize that now it is showing up here, Chinese aid and corruption in African local government. Now, another thing you could do is you could actually also go to the journal website, view the paper, and use this plugin to also get the paper. So now it says here, view PDF. Okay, so I can click on view PDF. And then when you click on this view PDF, it will try to take you to the PDF website or the journal website. So once it takes you there, you can use this extension to get the paper added to your Mendeley reference manager. It will take some time to load on the strength of your signal. And then after it's done, that's the purpose of this plugin over here. Okay, so you realize that it's telling me this is the paper, whatever it is, Sujin Cha, this is the author. Okay, and then these are some other information of the paper. And then once you click, you realize that Mendeley would ask you some, or it will open up a dialog box for you. So it says Mendeley importer has access to this website. So I click here, it's supposed to open a dialog box. Everything is a bit slow now. I guess my RAM is quite overworked now. So it is trying to tell me it is trying to sign in. That's why you see this small box popping up here. So just give it a few minutes. I think it should work well. So if you are signed in, okay, if you are signed in, it will give you a pop-up box, and then you should be able to add that particular paper into your Mendeley reference. So I guess you could try, for those of you who have perhaps a better signal strength, you realize that it should work pretty well for you. Still taking quite some time. So that should work. Okay, that should work. Once you go to the journal website and you open this paper, when you click here, Mendeley would give you a drop or pop-up box. My system perhaps is a bit overloaded, that's why it's not popping up, but it will show you a pop-up box, and then it will tell you the information it wants to gather, all those information, and you just click on download, and then it will download and then put the information in your Mendeley reference manager. And if it's able to download a PDF file, the file icon should show here to tell you that your document was actually saved. I hope that question at least has been addressed to some extent.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So at least I've added 2 ways that you can use to add or to overcome the issue of Google Scholar. But if you insist on using Google Scholar for your documentation or to import documents, you can use the RIS. So sorry, we are using Google Scholar. So you go to Google Scholar. So if you visit Google Scholar, their page, and then you type in any keyword. If you want to get them into Mendeley, okay, one easy way is to click on Site. Okay, you click on Site, and then you can choose Refman. And when you choose Refman, download an RIS file. It will just download it's a very simple process. It will download an RIS file. My system is a bit overloaded, that's why almost everything is taking too long. But after it downloads the RIS file, then you just come to your Mendeley up here. You just come to Add New, choose Import from Library. Then you can choose the RIS file. And then when you choose the RIS file, like I demonstrated earlier on, you should be able to import it. Now, this was my RS file. Realize it says Research Information System document. Once you click on it and you choose open, okay, it will populate your document and then it should capture the information. So it says uploading file, scholar.rs, and then it will put all the information here. So those are at least 3 other ways you could use to get information into your Mendeley. If you still want to go with Google Scholar, you could go with the RS file, or you could go with the Mendeley plugin in the browser. That should work well. Okay, and what were the other questions?
Does Mendeley have a Turnitin function?
I don't know of any such function of Mendeley trying to check plagiarism or something like that. No.
And then from Kiajiman, he's asking, please, I can't find Mendeley in Word. When I click references, what could be the problem?
Which Word are you using? Are you using Microsoft Word? I know for some other word processors, sometimes it gets hidden under plugins. If you don't find under plugins, then perhaps you didn't install it well. Normally, I recommend that when you are installing the plugin for Word, close any opened word processor. Okay, so normally when you install the plugin, it is good to close the word processor before you install the plugin. And that normally avoids such challenges. So whoever has a question, you could give a try again. You could close all your open word processors and then click on the add Mendeley site, and that should work well. Are there any other questions before we use them?
Yeah, and then there is a question from Mohammed Ahmad Usman. He's asking how to use GPT reference style in Mendeley.
How to use
GPT reference style.
So now remember, when you open your Word document, okay, that's what you should see if everything is working well. If you realize that the style you want, if I click on citations, I can click on change style. If the style you want is not listed here, you can just click on search for another style, and then you can search using the keyword. So if the GLB is an internationally recognized style, if you click here and you search, it will give you feedback. Okay, so if it is not something that is recognized perhaps internationally, but you have to do it, the easy way to go about it is to add custom style. And then you can add the URL to be able to generate that custom style for you. Okay, so that shouldn't be a big deal. You can just search for the style you want, whether MLE. You realize that here is a small list. Okay, so perhaps you want to use MLE. You can just click search for another style, click on, and then type the words Modern Language Association or MLE. You search, and then you can add. Great. I hope that works well.
Okay. Yes, please. And there's another one from 78. Please, we would humbly ask that we rename ourselves so that we can properly identify all of us. So 78 is asking, can we use Mendeley, EndNote, and Zotero at the same time interchangeably?
To some extent, you know, to some extent, you can get them connected to some extent, but you would have to do a lot of syncing and then import files and then export, and all will be based on the IRS. So you realize that there are some file and the tools over here. I think when I get to Zotero, I'll also talk about that. Just like how I showed you how we import RIS and other files. There is a way, but that's a bit advanced. There is a way that you can get Mendeley connected to Zotero, such that when you add information or literature in Zotero, it could automatically sync, and then the same information or the same literature would be reflected in your Mendeley. But that is quite advanced. And since this is more like a basic section, because if I want to do that, that will also need an extra time. and we may not be able to meet the needed goals of this research workshop. So
Okay.
maybe the person who is asking that maybe later could reach out, and then any tips
Okay.
or I could even share some resource online where the person can watch videos or learn, and then
Okay.
do that. Yeah, but to some extent you can link, at least to some extent, Zotero and Mendeley.
Doc, it's I want you to humbly check the time for me. There are 2 hands in the chat box who wants to ask questions. Looking at your time, can I let them go on, or you would want to take them at the end of the Zotero presentation?
Yeah, let's quickly take them, and then we just have to do a Zotero. So let's take the question.
Okay, so please, we will take the question of Nana Kwame first, and then please, Sam, you would follow. After that, we would move on to Zotero presentation.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, you can go ahead.
Okay, mine is not a question. I want to add up to what Brother Philip answered the question with regards to the first answer. So, in addition to the first answer, if I heard the question well, the person was trying to ask maybe probably if you had the paper from Google, not Google Scholar. That one is also there. So, for example, if you search your article through Mendeley online or Google and you didn't get maybe any interested paper or publication, then you had a paper from Google, then you can also still add it to Mendeley. But then maybe the paper might not be a journal paper or published paper. Maybe it will be short communication or maybe a newspaper or maybe something like that. So if you want to add it to Mendeley, when you you open your Mendeley where you can add new, then you add it manually. So where the manual, where you can add the manual paper is, over there, there's a section where you can choose if the paper is a journal paper or is a short communication, or the paper that you are adding is maybe newspaper. Then the information there will be there. Then you just fill in the information, just like Brother Philip did when he was adding the manual. He added the DOI of the paper and everything came. So if the paper that you wanted to add is not a journal paper, but rather short communication or maybe a newspaper, yes, you can add it to the Mendeley, but there is a way of doing that. You just go to add new, then you choose manual. The manual, there's also another section where you choose short communication or newspaper, then you fill in the information, then it will be added so that you can do your reference, you can do your in-test referencing. Yeah, thank you.
I think I get what you said. Definitely, it's very doable. You can add any document when we are doing the Zotero out. As long as you input the document, you now have control over the metadata. Every document you add, if I should click, you realize that you see info, annotation, notebook. If I click on the info shows me all this information over here, and I could basically edit them in any way I would want. Okay, you could basically edit them in any way you would want. So you realize that when you click here, you have control over any of these things. So if it's a document that perhaps you crafted, but you still want to cite, maybe it's a working paper, it's not uploaded to whatever it is, you could add the paper as a document and then basically use this info here to populate and then enter the needed information. Okay, I would also go over that when you are doing the Zotero. It's very simple. So it basically means any document you can cite, whether it's paper, whether it's website, you can create the file and then add the information you want. So I think we'll take the last question and then we'll go to Zotero and then try to end on Zotero.
So please, Sam, you can come in now.
Hello,
Please,
can I be
you
heard?
can lower your hand.
Yes, sir, you can hear you.
Okay, so my question is, sometimes I want to use Semantic Scholar search engine to figure out or find my paper. I'm able to find the paper, and then through that I can locate the journal in which the paper is. And I want to use extension from Mendeley to cite it, but sometimes I figure out that some of the papers I'm not able to cite it using the Mendeley, using the extension. So is there something I'm doing wrong, or how can I go about that when I encounter such a problem?
A Mendeley extension, a Mendeley plugin does not have a database that captures all papers. I think Mendeley normally focuses on Scopus database. So if the paper is not indexed in Scopus, you might not find it in the Mendeley search. So it means you might have to use Google Scholar. I think Google Scholar has a wider base than the Mendeley search.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So if you search in Mendeley search and you can't find it, it's perhaps because the paper is not in Scopus, and then you can use Google Scholar to search for that paper. And then once you find it, you can download. Remember, you can still use the extension, or you can download the RIS and then import it into Mendeley or whatever it is. Okay, so I think we'll run up the chapter here on Mendeley. And then because I've taught Zotero to, I think, in Nooks, I think I've also had this Zotero training for Nooks some time back. So I think we can be a bit fast with Zotero. All right, so I'll quickly open my Zotero manager. Now I sent this file out to how we can get Zotero already set up. So I'll presume that everyone already has their Zotero set up or configured. So I will not go to the online. So this was the file that was sent out if you wanted to configure your Zotero. So I presume everything is already configured. See from there.